everyone. Welcome back to the Kirkpatrick Podcast. It is Vanessa, and I am joined by Dr. Amy Heaton and Jordan Rawlinson today. And it's been a minute since the three of us have gotten together. Actually, it's only been like a couple of hours, but it's been a minute since we talked a little bit about the summit for everyone. And I just wanted to take some time today to kind of give people a little bit of a inside peek into what the summit was like and having us all together. This is the first time that the three of us were together. So I think there'll be lots of fun things to talk about. So ladies, how are you all today?
Doing great. Cannot complain. Happy to be back on the podcast.
That's right. It's been a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, let's start off. If you had to describe the energy of the summit and what it was like from your perspective, you both being facilitators of the summit, what would you say the energy was like in the room?
I think eager is a word that comes to mind for me. Everyone was just really eager to be there and talk about their use of the model or their barriers or the things that we have coming up for next year. There's just, lots of like buzzing, eager energy to really implement everything we talked about too.
Yeah. What about you, Amy? This is like your first big Kirkpatrick kind of debut. Jordan facilitates all of our programs. It was at the summit last year. So what did you think the energy was like from your perspective?
Well, it's always cool when you do these more creative workshops where we combined like hackathon with some improv games with a design workshop. So you expect as a facilitator to have a few confused looks and some, furrowed brows, but that's where engagement comes from. So for me, when I see people like looking at me and being like, did she really tell us to just do that? Or like, what are we doing getting in a game? They're circled to do a game, like that means they're engaged. And I felt like there was never a moment where people were bored and where people were like not on topic. Like if you play it safe, which you gave us kind of free rein to go and be bold.
Yeah.
But if you play it safe, you end up in a situation where, there's someone joining the podcast. Hi, Laszlo.
Hi, Laszlo. Just don't delete anything.
You lack engagement sometimes. And so we went bold. And I felt like when we went, particularly into day 2, where we were going into application and we were doing a lot of role playing on how to talk to your stakeholders, we really challenged people. And I think that was good to see folks like taking a lot of notes, looking back and being like, let's clarify, what did they say? Asking a lot of questions. That energy is what you want to see. So I felt like the engagement was really high. It was an easy group to facilitate. Sorry.
It's okay as long as Laszlo doesn't delete anything important like he has in our past.
We had walked across the computer keyboard. I would say, 1 minute before we were turning a proposal in and deleted an entire column of data.
And the most important column.
Sorry.
And then the other day, I went back into a document and it was all like this weird, like it kind of could have made sense if you really thought about it. And I texted her, I was like, what were you trying to say? And she was like, no, that was Laszlo. It was not me.
Always Laszlo. I have other cats, but he's the only one that troubles me. Everyone has their troubled child.
Yeah. He pays attention. It was sort of on the same path. So at least he knows where he's around. I have to say, for me, I agree with both of you. And I think, Jordan, like your word of eager, like you could sense that, like there was a buzz in the room. People were very excited to be there. They felt honored to be there and to kind of be part of this sort of like inside group. To get the first look at the new model and the first look at, to hear a chapter from the book and to see some of the evolution and kind of, it's really, when I look at kind of where the company is moving to, it's, really putting more of my stamp on what does Kirkpatrick mean and like learning and things like that. And so, I think that was, it's a little nerve-wracking for me because you never know how someone is going to take your thoughts and your direction, especially taking something as beloved as the Kirkpatrick model and adding your own spin to it, and not having the privilege of the Kirkpatrick last name. It's a little nerve-wracking, but I think it went well. So it was a good first little soft launch, if you will. So I think that was great for me. And I think it was nice to see people actually doing things the entire time, right? I think we go to these conferences or these workshops and we listen, we do a little activity, you listen, do a little activity, or if you're at a conference, you're just listening and taking notes, and then you're like, well, what do I do next? It was cool to see people actually like do something that they could do back at work, right? And learn some new skills. So that was nice. When we look at who was in the room, it was a bunch of different industries, all different levels of, experience, years of experience, what their role was very different. It was a very mixed group. How did that feel for you both to see that sort of meld and sort of mix?
I think, that's part of doing a design workshop is you try to solve problems depending on like who the end user is or who the persona type is. And the benefit of that is that it can sometimes be the first time that people in different roles are hearing of the struggles and challenges of other folks who they don't normally interact with that role, right? So if you're a program director, do you know what the struggle is, where the rubber hits the road for an instructional designer when they're supposed to roll out a new technology? Oftentimes they don't get to hear those narratives. So the section where we had folks go and read each other's stick-it notes and kind of like look at like during the problem definition section, I think was insightful to watch reactions and to see how people were responding to that. Yeah, I always think that part's exciting. It can be challenging to bring people back to a common purpose afterwards, but when we kind of oriented towards talking to stakeholders, I think everybody had a totally different voice, and they had, doing that first piece where you identify in clear statements what your problems are, your problem statements. The second day, when everyone in a group would speak to our role-playing stakeholders, didn't you hear like different voices come out where it wasn't just the one leader in every group speaking? They were speaking on behalf of all the different voices and speaking on behalf of the different persona types. So I think there's a great benefit from having a diverse group in the room. It can be a little hard to get it right. And, hopefully we got it close to right. But I saw it come out in their narratives on day 2 when they were trying to create solutions and then pitch them to their stakeholder groups. You weren't just hearing the program director's view. You were hearing from the instructional designers and from your training managers. You were hearing from everybody in the room. And I feel like it gives people a little bit more confidence to speak about their own perspective.
Yeah, I think what stood out to me, what was really interesting across the perspectives was how a lot of the themes were very similar, but they were coming from different angles. So like everyone, no matter if they were program directors, instructional designers, managers, talked about time or tools or communication with people being barriers that were big barriers to being able to actually have this evaluation and implement the model and as a practice in their organization. But it was from slightly different perspectives, right? Because of those personas. And so it was cool to be able to not just see the differences, but also, hey, we all are experiencing similar challenges. Let's talk about these collectively and get everyone's perspective to actually be able to solve it, hopefully.
Yeah, that was quite interesting where we like grouped all the challenges, and there were very distinct themes that came through that were the same across the board. And then seeing the one big theme that all of them was this problem with data that we have, which for me made it just even more strengthened and made it more obvious, how much we did actually need to get evaluation right. And the way that we collect the data and the way that we source it. How do we categorize data? What do we categorize as data? That was really interesting to see, because it just, sometimes, often, I feel like we say things, or we, come out with, blog posts and thought leadership on certain things. And, it's been a minute since I've been in the work world, and am I still relevant? I do a lot of listening and paying attention, but, I have not been an employee of someone else in a really long time. And so it was validating to see, like, okay, Vanessa, you're not completely off of an island of like what you think the challenges are for folks. Like, these are legitimate challenges. So when I go to talk to others about like, hey, we need to solve for these challenges for my customers, I felt 100% even more, right and on the right path, and saying like, everyone, like, these are the things that we need to help people solve. So that was really cool. And that leads me to, the next question I have is, do you have a favorite moment or conversation that you had at the summit? Oh gosh, I saw your eyes lit up. I'm a little nervous.
My conversations are always the sidebars. My favorite moments are always sidebars. Like, I think we opened with an icebreaker that was about like, find something weird out about the person. And partly that's my own, because introductions can be so, blasé. They're this person, they work at this place, this is their role. Like, if you go around the room and have people introduce themselves, like, you are missing out. There's such the tip of the iceberg of who people are. And I wanted to find out like something that would really that I could really remember about them. And like, it just becomes how people introduce themselves or get introduced becomes kind of the frame that you interact with them through. Yep. And so since we asked them to uncover like something really strange that most people wouldn't know or that you wouldn't tell people at work, and we asked them to do like a little bit of investigative journalism to find out who they are outside of work, something they don't normally share. Some of those stories became how I interacted like with people in the hallways. And so I felt like that gave us such a richer idea of who was in the room than just knowing like, what do you do for a living? What is your, it's because to me, that's not, I think we always believe in bringing the whole person to work, right? We're in the world of talent development, and talent is like, not just like, how good are you at like managing spreadsheets? It's this whole other skill set and like personality that you bring to bear at work. And so I'm always going to say the sidebars based on like some odd improv activity that we've done that pulls people's real person into the room and getting them out of their roles. So when we do those little like improv games, it's not just to get people to do team cohesion and to get into listening. It's that it pulls you out of your bodies and pulls you out of your mind and into your bodies. Sorry. And I love that stuff where like anything we're doing in the workshops that gets people to be people first. And then we can get into like topics because we're then being more authentic, right? We're then moving into the workshop as like real humans. And then they feel more comfortable approaching us, right? As like people. And like they can critique us or call us out, and then we can address the problem. And I feel like it puts everybody on equal footing. There's none of this like a celebrity on the stage or sage on the stage. It's more like everybody's in this together, and we're all just one big goofy group of people who like to watch. Some of the things people were sharing about like true crime podcasts that they listen to. I remember those people.
I love it. Jordan, what about you?
I think for me, a lot of my favorite moments were some of the side conversations at lunch. And it was things that had to do with like how useful and applicable it was, right? Like it's not like it was all this theory and it was really complex and like, look how advanced this, new model is. And just for the sake of like thought leadership, but making it useful. Like so many people were like, I'm going to use this when I go back. Or I love that you showed us specific tools that we can actually go back and implement, right? Even something as simple as this worksheet with 6 questions to help you actually identify what's the return on performance, what's the return on expectations, and how do you use that as a very simple framework to go back and have those important conversations with leaders that can feel so intimidating and feel like, oh my gosh, what do I say or how do I say it? But to help boil it down to the essentials and give people concrete tools, not just in that worksheet, but even in like the actual technology demos that we were showing that folks have access to. Like, I think hearing people's testimonies to like, I'm going to have conversations after this with my boss and with my team and with leadership to implement everything that we've been talking about is just a very cool experience when that is the whole point of the model too, right? So I think that was what felt really, I don't know, special to see.
Yeah.
You're actually seeing you do role playing. The instructional designer role was a highlight for me because you went in character. So I have to say, I'll explain a little background. Like, so on day 2, one of the things we were doing was trying to get people. So we have a problem, right, in L&D where often L&D is siloed and we're cut out of the conversations. No one thinks to bring L&D in when we're trying to decide what is the solution to the problem. We just decide, oh, we need to do a training.
Yeah.
And so we were trying to get folks to like speak more to the business, to help them uncover the real problem, to decide if it's like, what's the stakeholder's real issue, right? And then say, is it actually training as a solution, or is it training plus the environment, which is in your book? Like, is it training plus cultural work, plus policies, plus procedures? What is that? Can we please be invited into the room? So day 2 was pitching ideas back of like how to solve problems that were ecosystem solutions, not just like a one-off training. And so we had Wendy Kirkpatrick acting as, what was her role? She was
the director.
Was she the program director, or she was C-suite, right? Like a C-suite leader. We had Jerry Wang, who was doing a great job as program director. He got very into character. Yes. And who else? Jordan, what were you? You were playing. You and Melanie were playing the individual contributor role. What were you specifically, though?
We were like the operational folks, just like general,
like receivers of the training. Yeah.
And then Vanessa was an instructional designer who, like, your like ideas around like how hard it would be to get something done, or like needing more information, or I think it was like you were pointing out ways that the technology wasn't going to work, and I was just like feeling such deep pain of like,
or like calling Wendy Wilma.
You bring to bear some experience on this, and getting to watch everybody bring their lifetimes of experiences in these roles to that role playing, so that the participants in the workshop really had a realistic job at having to convince stakeholders. And I think you were one of the more difficult characters to convince.
Well, you know, in my 5th grade yearbook, I wanted to be a singer actress. So I just channeled a lot of that into my role. Plus, you know, real, like that is life. That was life. Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't acting. It was acting in the moment, but it was real thoughts that you have, or sometimes like, you know, when I work with customers, you know, when I work with Anchored, that like, I want to sit here and say like, all right, let's stop and think about that. You know, I have so many memories that I'll take away from the summit. I think one I'm going to save for a question that I have, but obviously unveiling the new book, the new model, reading chapter, like, you know, that was, you know, incredible, obvious, like, but that's like an obvious highlight for me. It was I will say probably when I unveiled the new our new category, and we're talking about enterprise performance intelligence. And when one of the participants, it was like silent in the room, one of the participants was just like, wow. And it was like that. Like you could almost see that emoji, like the one with like the mind blown emoji. And I was like, okay. I 'cause again, these are your thoughts. You're putting it into a book, and you're like, I don't know if what they're gonna say, how they're gonna respond. So that was, I felt like, okay, we can move forward with the book. I wasn't gonna have to claw it back from ATD. So that was good. So as you both know, September 11th was the last day of the summit. As someone from New Jersey, that hits really hard for me, as many of us, no matter where you are. But, knowing that a family, September 11th was a lot. And we had, although this definitely almost killed one of our participants from her allergies. We had a flower station where we made little bouquets. And then the next day, because I didn't have to fly out until 9 p.m., Tiffany and our team and I, we love going into DC whenever we can. We go visit all my favorite places. So we went around DC and the Pentagon and dropped flowers off, like at all the different memorials and at the 9/11 memorial and stuff. And they were all bouquets that the participants made. And so I think that was a very special moment for me. And we did, a service project last year too. It's just keeping that community aspect, right? I think it stems beyond learning. It's like us doing something together and giving back, which was great. I don't know. The big one I'm going to save. I'll ask the question first. Well, I guess I'll ask the question. I'll be the first one to answer it since I've been teasing it. Did you see any aha moments where people shifted from thinking about training to thinking about performance? So this was probably one of my most memorable moments from the summit was, I actually have a line about this in the book. I actually reflect on it twice in the book. It's like when we're given a challenge, we usually spend, it's like this quote, they say is from Albert Einstein, right? So he says, if you give me a challenge, I'll spend 55 minutes on the problem and 5 minutes on the solution, where we traditionally will spend 55 minutes on the solution and 5 minutes on defining the problem, right? And so when we were doing the problem, statement and really thinking about and uncovering what the problem was, I could tell that people were trying to get over to the solution really, really quickly. And I pulled you aside, Amy, and I was like, we need the reset because they're still not digging in far enough, And so we paused everyone, and I gave kind of my little, my moment of y'all, you're not doing the deep enough work to find out what the problem is. You're doing what you always do. Okay. And let's dig in more, because when we dig in more, we'll get richer solutions. And I think when we talk about how do I convince my stakeholders and I want help in convincing stakeholders, that is the actual work. And that's the uncomfortable work that we need to sit in for a minute, right? Spend that 55 minutes in that to really be able to define a solution. But for me, after that, I saw it click for some folks, oh, you're right. I'm going a little too, even though I may think that I'm not an order taker and I'm more of a strategic person, I'm still shifting, a little too quickly into now, diving into the solutions. I think for me, that was my aha moment and one of my favorite moments when we realized how deep you have to go into the problem to define the solution. What about you, Jay?
That's a good one. Hard to follow.
Well, we can just be done with the podcast then.
What was the question again?
Aha moments from when people shifted from
moments,
training to performance.
Yeah. I think aha moments for me, one of my favorite parts. So because I've been talking to Vanessa about wanting to do some presentation, something around how my F45 studio, this group fitness studio that I attend, how they do an excellent job at level 3. And they're it's not training professionals. It's not evaluation professionals. It's group fitness, right? And so I finally got to be my raving fan self about why I'm so excited about and how I see all of these things happening as like a customer of theirs. And the shift, like there were so many aha moments where when I was sharing examples about how level 3 reinforcement and monitoring and encouragement doesn't have to be so complicated, and shifting away from like, we're spending so much human resources on training. But in like my F45 class, it's like a 3-minute demo at the beginning of like, here's how you do the exercises. This is what we're doing. And then the rest of the time is the actual doing, where people are encouraging you, walking around, correcting your form. And then all of this other culture building stuff that we would call, part of the performance support package. And so many people came up to me after my presentation which I had like plenty of screenshots and pictures and experience from that context. And basically the message being, you don't have to be a training expert to drive performance change. Like it doesn't have to be so complicated to focus on performance and driving that as opposed to the learning and the training side of things. And so many people came up to me and was like, I really loved those examples. Like it wasn't overcomplicated. I can see how not only is this driving change, but it's also building culture. It's driving engagement in your organization. It's driving relationship building, like all of these other things that are kind of bonuses that we're trying to bring into our organizations too. So I think that was probably a cool moment, because not just for me, but also the response that people had to those examples.
To your point, it is always that question of like, how do I do level 3 that we get in bronze so often? Like these are all great ideas, but like it's still not seeing examples, which by the way, now that I'm thinking of it, can you write this down, Jordan, for when we update the curriculum? We probably need to throw in some of those examples. But that is like actually seeing it and just showing like, the card or the this or that. And then you realize how low, how inexpensive those things are. Right. And the idea that you shared, I'm not someone that, wasn't, into fitness, you did not train to have perfect form and all of these things. And you're growing in your experience and you're getting better every single day. And all you're using is a 3-minute demo to be that foundation. It really makes you stop and think like, even that foundational content, how much of it needs to be served to our end user in this package, or could be, through reinforcements. What about you, Amy?
I got to talk about return on performance, return on expectation, and this like new way that we're looking at impact at level 4 called an integrated return. And I must have gotten so into what I was saying because there was a moment where Jordan yelled out, "Preach." And I would love to know if you remember. I grew up in the South, and I've been to every kind of church you can go to, including the ones where you go for 6 hours.
Oh, man.
And you're standing up and like you think it's over, and then they do one more refrain to the chorus. I've been to those churches. I love them. So I wonder if
you felt like you were back there.
That carried over where I'm proselytizing when I'm giving what should be more academic talks. Do you remember what I was preaching about? I was kind of soapboxing at one point.
I think it was something along the lines of how we will oversimplify. Like we want to have this perfect number, right? To share like what the ROI is. Okay. And like, because we feel all this pressure, but there are all of these other things that we have to take into consideration. And like, that is valid too, or more so. And so I think I was just like, preach, sister. Absolutely.
And it's when those things for me, like, is when you can tell when something clicks with an audience, it's usually when you're validating something that they're feeling internally, but that they feel like nobody else is putting it into words, or that no one else sees them. And for me, the times when I felt like people were indicating that they felt seen or heard, those were my aha moments. And I think it is when I talk about how we're not in the room when people are deciding that training is the issue, and the issue that creates for L&D is that we're on the hook for fixing an entire cultural shift in an organization or an entire bottom line, like financial outcome. When we weren't in the room, when people decided that it was a training that needed to be how we fix that problem. And we could have told you, hey, it's training plus a policy change. It's training plus these other things. And so you can't train someone and then put them back. I showed this picture of a stagnant pond, and you can't put people back into that stagnant water after you've trained them and expect that everything is going to change because you transformed one person's understanding or even a group of people's understanding. You have to do the institutional support to give people that kind of ramp and that leeway to make the changes that they've just transformed themselves and then come back with all these ideas after training. You can't put them back in the stagnant pool, or else they will leave and find another job. And I felt some kind of amen kind of vibe in the crowd from that, and feeling like L&D shouldn't be on the hook to solve all the problems within a business or an organization if we weren't clear to define what the problem was and whether or not it was really up to L&D alone to solve that. Like, let's be clear on what training can and cannot do in isolation. And it's like training shouldn't be done in isolation. I feel like that part was hitting with folks in the crowd because we're always asked to calculate our ROI. What's the return on doing all these L&D things? You guys are a cost center, CFOs are looking at L&D and saying, but what value do you bring? And we're going, we're the entire value. If only, you'd listen to us, right? So that piece about being able to communicate our value differently, but also setting expectations around like, for this is what you can expect for us to be able to change. Like, you're not going to give someone 4 hours of leadership development and then like all of a sudden do a 10X on your bottom line in a like large company. So I think that part seemed to hit because L&D is often on the hook for a lot. And I think that part was like, people felt like someone saying this whole thing that's been weighing on my shoulders. Yeah.
I think too, one of the big ahas for folks was they weren't alone and they weren't the only ones struggling with this. I think, if you come from a government entity, you assume that you have, you're the only one dealing with this, things are faster or, whatever in the private sector, which there is a level of being faster, in the private sector versus the when you're in the public sector, for sure. And then, sometimes they are surprised that the challenges are very similar in terms of, to your point, right, not being in the room, being, told that you have to be the one to make this big cultural change, even though your leadership should be the ones modeling, that cultural change, right? So while we may wear a different hat in terms of where we work or the type of industry we work and some of the specifics may be different, there's still a lot of the same challenges. And I think that, that's why I love to do the summit. And I love to have these experiences where we bring people together from all different sectors, like the beauty of the Kirkpatrick community and the public programs that we have. It's being able to know that you're not alone in this in a world in which you do often feel very alone. It's sometimes hard to explain like what we do. I was just yesterday touring a bunch of office spaces here in Florida, and everyone asked me like, well, what do you do? And, sometimes it can be challenging explaining exactly what I do if you're not in this sort of world. So finding my people and my community, I think was really cool. I will also say one of the things that I didn't get to share earlier, but I think was really touching for me was our international representation at this summit was next level. Especially for only being like our second one. We had folks from Germany, folks from Sweden, from Switzerland, and, it was really great to see them there. It was our partners at Travado, the Institute for Transfer Effectiveness, and NOLI, as well as some of our participants. And it was just great to see them making this commitment to come all the way here, which is not, a 2-3 hour flight, and spend that time to really build that connection with us and our community here, so that they can learn and refine and iterate. And that was really cool to see. It was also really nice to see those that came with other folks in their organization, and then to sit in on their debrief afterwards, to hear what they took away. And the reason I think that's so cool is, you may be thinking, like, Vanessa, we do this all the time when we go to conferences. Yes, and you often go to different sessions, right? So when you come back and you're debriefing, what you're really debriefing on is like, this is what happened in this session. Here are my takeaways. However, to hear people debrief from the same organization who consumed the same content and maybe took it in differently and had their own different hats and perspectives, that was really powerful to see, because their conversations were richer, and their ability, they had their own lens and where they were coming and stepping into the space from, and then to see their action plans and what they were going to be taking away from that. I believe it gave them a much more solid foundation. And I think that we don't do that enough. One of the workshops that Jordan facilitates is one where we'll bring in the beginning of it, the business with L&D, and they're having conversations of like, what is the perception? How do you perceive our department? And it's very open, and they have that conversation, and it sets a different tone, and it helps because sometimes we have perceptions of how we assume the business sees us, and they may see us completely differently, or we may be right and they're confirming what we think. But if we're not all in the room having that conversation, I think that is a challenge. So I think that was cool to see at the summit, and why I recommend next year's summit.
As a team.
As a team. Come one, come many. We accept all. All right. Well, y'all, should we tell them about what next year looks like a little bit?
Buckle up.
Buckle up. One of the things that we loved so much about the summit is this whole concept of these design workshops, very hands-on, and bring your team, let's solve challenges together. So we are going to be going out on the road. We'll be in a few different cities near you, right? I cannot say for certain exactly when and where. I will say likely Orlando, likely Sacramento, likely Dallas. But we shall certainly see. If you have a request of where you want us to show up, Hawaii, we're always taking that request. The Maldives.
But we were trying to hit all the regions, right? We wanted to do East Coast,
West
Midwest.
Coast. Yeah.
And
East
West
Coast,
to make travel a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And to do some hubs.
Right. But again, if you want us to go to the Maldives, oh no. And then, we're going to do some international stuff too. So we're very excited for that. I guess, Amy, can you share a little bit more of some ways that we hope that this energy will carry forward into 2026?
We've already had so many great collaboration talks since the summit. Management Concepts, Jerry Wang, we've talked to him, and he shared with us that folks are really excited about the kinds of workshops they're doing in leader development. And we're looking at ways to collaborate with them right now. And Jordan and I have started to brainstorm on how we can do so many more mini workshops small modularized workshops. And we really enjoyed being in front of people and getting that interaction. I think, for people like with our personalities, we thrive actually being in the room physically with people. And we missed a lot of that from the pandemic. We got used to doing everything online. And I think that we miss so much of that collaborative spirit and energy that was created in the room where it's focused. People didn't have distractions. I didn't see a single laptop out that entire time. No. It wasn't that kind of workshop. It was hands-on application. Like, let's get down to business. Your entire mission that you had given to me as we were designing this is make sure people can apply this when they leave the room. I don't want to hear one person saying when they leave the summit that they don't know how to go home and apply the Kirkpatrick model. So that was like kind of our framing for this. And I think it's that energy. Everything needs to be short, punchy, to the point. Let's figure out what the problem is that we're solving, be very clear about identifying that problem, and then put all our energy into prototyping solutions in the second portion of a workshop. So I think we've been really excited. We weren't sure how, like, the three of us facilitating together was going to go. I think we've been really energized to see that, like, oh, we want to take this on the road. We want to keep doing these like high intensity, high impact workshops so that folks can get a lot out of Kirkpatrick partners really in a short amount of time, right? Yeah. These short, punchy. So I'm hoping that like we get more of those opportunities, and we're moving some of our training to these bigger like summits that are across the country. Like we're doing more than one summit probably next year, and hoping to do some of these really punchy events there. So that's our vision right now.
Yeah, I think one of the key things that you hit on earlier and that came out was this need to have alignment in your organization. And like in order to actually do Kirkpatrick and scale it in your organization, the first step is to align yourselves and the business. And being able to say, all right, let's get the business in the room and like, let's talk about how we're going to do evaluation and how we're going to help our employees develop and how we're going to become these cultures of continuous improvement, these cultures of continuous innovation and all of these things. The only way that we can do that is if we're sitting in the same room and we're aligning. And so we're excited about the ability to be able to provide that and be sort of that facilitator of that. Because at the end of the day, none of those cultures actually can really exist if you don't have evaluation baked into it to know what's working, what's not, how to pivot and all of these things. Even the summit, there was evaluation baked in the whole time. There were times that we had to pivot based on formative feedback.
Formative assessments, right? We got formative assessments during lunch breaks and we pivoted and made sure that things were going to bring the value that people had hoped to get from it on the spot. So can I ask you a question? Is that out of...
Yes.
And this is one you don't know. It's a surprise. So, okay. How do you see what you're doing, like with creating like some new services at Kirkpatrick, sort of like the workshops and things like that? How do you see that aligning with the book and how you're unveiling the book? Like, when is the book coming out?
Yeah.
Like, how are you unveiling this? Are you going on the road? Are you doing, like, I'm genuinely asking because we haven't had a chance to make our schedule yet. So can everybody else just listen while we do some internal planning?
Yes.
No, there's got to be a vision. Like, you have a vision.
I have
Can you
a vision.
articulate that for folks, right?
I always have a vision. And you guys know this. I'm usually about 100 years ahead of you, but not you, Amy, you, my team. Which includes Amy. Like, I have the vision in my head, right? So it feels like a puzzle piece that's coming together. So we'll have, the model is going to come out very soon. And then the new service offerings, the new website. And then I plan on being everywhere, at conferences, doing a little book tour, and just really being out there and putting this in front of everybody. So it is going to be a very big, very exciting year. And this summit,
apparently you're going to have some AI twins of you, because I don't know how you're going to be everywhere.
Well, someone's going to have to, my children will be homeschooled next year, so they can just come on the road with me in order to do that. But I'm excited for that, and to bring this experience closer to everybody else. Jordan, cool. Amy, I appreciate your time and sharing your experience. If you were at the summit, we'd love to hear, you share your aha moments and takeaways. And if you are not there, we want to hear where you want us to be next year so we can see you in person and what you're most looking forward to. Friends, thank you so much for being here, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye.